Elevation. Aim. Fire. Recover. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Recover. Shoulder. Arms. Up. Head. Arms. Down 10.
My name is Zuccarelli. I'm the supervisor here in Thornton Township. I'd like to welcome all of you here today, particularly the veterans that are participating in our program. Many times in our everyday lives we get very busy and forget how important it is that we've got such fine men and women that are representing us and protecting us every day of our life. There's been Revolutionary War, the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the Vietnam War, Vietnam conflict, Iraq, Iran, even when it is not wartime. So it's very important for us to recognize our veterans and realize that freedom is not free. We have to fight for it every day.
We want to give a special uplifting blessing to the veterans of Civil War and the veterans of all the wars, from the Revolutionary to the present. Join me in prayer. Almighty God, Father of us all, we your servants turn to you for continuance of the blessings upon us. You have spared us veterans from the grasp of our enemies. Grant us the full understanding of your precious comfort. We thank you for the privilege of life and blessing we enjoy through your graciousness. And comfort. We thank you for the privilege of life and the blessing enjoyed through your generous in our country. The land in which we are given the freedom of speech, religion, and pursuit of happiness. Assist us to know you better and the wisdom and knowledge. You are God of the universe and our ideal. In your mercy, may we, the living, find peace. Grant us above this day the challenge of high endeavor and beauty of our humbling spirit and the strength, courage, and will, without exertion, to continue to glorify you, to praise you, to love you, to the end of time. Amen.
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 The flag on the right is the Union flag, which represents General Ulysses S. Grant's headquarters, which has 36 stars present, representing each state of the Union during the Civil War of 1861. The flag on the left is called the Bonnie flag, a blue flag with one large white single star on a field of blue represents succession and separation from the Union. Several states used the Bonnie flag, but it was never adopted by the Confederate government. Records from the Historical Society show township residents served in the Civil War. This time I'd like everybody to please join hands in a moment of silence.
At high elevation, A, fire, recover, load, order.
I'd like to introduce one of our guest speakers, Mr. Bruce Allerdis.
Why the Civil War? Why is it so important 150 years later? This is the one war in American history where it wasn't us against them. It was us against us. Brother fought brother. Father fought son. Illinoisans fought for the Confederacy, a few did. But of course, most Illinoisans remained loyal to the Union. 1861 in Thornton Township, if you had been alive then, you would have seen posters like this in recruiting rallies. This is an actual meeting in Detroit, Michigan of, I don't know if you can see it from that angle there, of citizens listening to recruiting speeches, being urged to join. You would have seen recruiting posters like this for the 72nd Illinois Infantry Regiment. This is the first Chicago Board of Trade Regiment, and yes, the Chicago Board of Trade sponsored and helped to finance military units on their own. The war originally starts to preserve the Union, but it takes a different cast very soon. It soon becomes a war for the abolition of slavery. As President Lincoln once said, if slavery is not wrong, nothing is wrong. And people throughout Illinois joined the Union Army in order to free the slaves, in order to abolish slavery in this country. Most of my ancestors, like I'm sure many of yours, weren't even in this country at this time. Mine came over about 1920. But I had one side of my family was here at the time. He enlisted in 113th Illinois out of Barrington. He was 47 years old. The only lie he ever told in his life was that he shaved 5 years off of his age for the recruiting sergeant in order to be able to enlist. His son, who was 17 years old, he was underage. He too lied about his age in order to join in the Army with his father. He did not have to tell a lie, though. He did what a lot of underage enlistees did during those days, which was he would take a piece of paper and write the number 18 on it, and then paste it to the bottom of his shoe. So when the recruiting sergeant asked what age he was, he'd stand up and could legitimately and truthfully say, "Well, I'm over 18." The war ends in 1865, as we know, with the Union again preserved. There was no Veterans Day back in 1865. There was no Veterans Day, in fact, until President Eisenhower instituted that as a holiday in 1954. It was based on, the Veterans Day we have now is based on the Armistice Day 1919, commemorating the end of the First World War. But what we had was Memorial Day. Memorial Day grows out of something called Decoration Day. And Illinois can claim a lot of credit for starting Memorial Day. The ladies of Carbondale, Illinois, started Decoration Day, where they would go and mark with flowers the graves of the local fallen soldiers. General John A. Logan, Congressman, soon to be United States Senator from Illinois, was at Carbondale that day giving a speech. When he saw this, he was also the national commander of the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, which was the veterans organization for the Union veterans. He saw that, and as soon as he got back to Congress, he instituted a bill naming May 30th as Memorial Day. And May 30th is Memorial Day, not because it commemorates anything done during the war, but because it was early enough so that throughout the nation, it would be warm enough so that people could get fresh flowers to decorate the graves. Who were these men who served in the war? I'm going to show you mostly people from Thornton Township. I have over there on my desk a list of people who served from North Thornton Township and veterans who are known to be buried in Thornton Township. First, we'll start with, this isn't Morgan Freeman. This is Sergeant William H. Carney, a Medal of Honor winner. He was in the movie Glory. He was one of those in 54th Massachusetts who charged on Battery Wagner and got killed that day in 1863. Excellent movie, by the way, if you have a chance to, if you haven't already seen it. Here's Sergeant Nimrod Burke, 23rd USCT. That's what they call the United States Colored Troops. That was the technical term for it. An Ohioan, born in 1840, died in 1903. Here's Private James Wilson. Again, born in 1840, died in 1903. Private Company A, 29th USCT. This is his burial stone in Mount Greenwood Cemetery, a little north of here. A lot of people from Blue Island were buried originally in Blue Island, and their graves were transferred, as you know, to Mount Greenwood Cemetery. There's a Overton Bentop. He is buried in Hazelwood. He is also a member of the United States Colored Troops, the 18th USCT. Here's the monument at Mount Greenwood to Captain James Brockway, the 29th USCT. He was a carpenter out of Elgin, Illinois. Got his commission as captain of the 29th. After the war, he was Cook County Recorder of Deeds, another elected official. Here's one of the famous units of the war. This is the Chicago Light Artillery. This is a photo of them on the left, on your left, during the war. And on the right, there's the monument to the Chicago Light Artillery that stands in Rose Hill Cemetery on the north side of Chicago. As we'll see, a number of inhabitants of Thornton Township served in the Chicago Light Artillery. Tinley Park, a little to the west of us, boasts a Medal of Honor winner from this war. Little is known of Private Henry Hardenberg of the 39th Illinois, Company G. He was a carpenter, age 21, living in what they called New Bremen at the time. Hardenberg's regiment in August of 1864 was ordered to capture some Confederate entrenchments near Richmond, Virginia. The regiment charged. Out of 230 men in the regiment, 104 were shot. It's about 40% casualties right there. Henry Hardenberg was carrying the colors, which was a very dangerous post. Everybody aimed at the person carrying the flag in those days. He got shot in the shoulder. He carried on, went into the Confederate entrenchments, had a hand-to-hand fight with the Confederate color bearer of the 10th Alabama, killed that man, took the Confederate flag from them, and brought it back safely to our lines. He was recommended for the Medal of Honor for this act of extraordinary bravery. Unfortunately, 2 weeks later, he got killed in action before he could be formally awarded the Medal of Honor. He received it posthumously.
By the way, the historical event that we just spoke about, we'll put it in our Township Focus newspaper to let everybody know the actual date and the time that we're going to do that. It will either be the last weekend in February or the first weekend in March. And as soon as we get the date and the time solidified, it'll be in the Township Focus newspaper. Or if you want to give us about a month or so, you can give us a call and ask, and Ron will know the exact date. So hopefully you'll all be able to come again. And now we have a gentleman by the name of John Butler I'd like to introduce. John?
Thank you very much. My name is John Butler, and I'm a retired history teacher from the Chicago Public Schools. And I want to say it's an honor being here today, being able to talk to you. My discussion is on the African American role in the Civil War. At the beginning of his Gettysburg Address, President Lincoln says, 407 years ago, our fathers brought forth to this nation, to this continent, a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men were created equal. This was a momentous period in the history of our nation. This was the American Revolution from 1776 to 1783. In this period of time, the American nation was able to win its political independence from England. 25 years after the war, we have the War of 1812, in which the United States wins its economic independence from England. That said, Bo, one of the problems that still existed in the nation was the issue of slavery. Within the nation, we have two economic systems developing in our nation, one being the industrial system of the North, the other being the slave system of the South. As the United States expanded over the years, the Louisiana Purchase, the Mexican-American War, the territories constantly increased. The conflicts between the North and the South were kicked down the road because there was various compromises over this issue of slavery. There was the Missouri Compromise, there was the issue of tariffs, there was a compromise of 1850. Then there was the Kansas-Nebraska Act. All of these compromises further delayed the eventual coming of the Civil War. The abolitionists at the time called for the end of slavery, and some of the great abolitionists of the day was William Lloyd Garrison and William Steele and Henry David Thoreau and Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, and John Brown. They pushed Lincoln, they pushed the issue of slavery and the abolition of slavery throughout those 50 years between the War of 1812 and the Civil War. The eventual split in the nation came with the election of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln, his election, the South broke away from the Union, and we have the start of the Civil War. At this time, African Americans were not allowed to fight, although it must be noted that 4,000 African Americans participated and fought valiantly in the American Revolution. African Americans participated in most of the major scrimmages of 1812. But by this time, in the 1860s, African Americans did not participate in the fighting of American wars. And there was a myth created that African Americans were not brave, they could not fight, they would melt under pressure, and so forth. So, at the beginning of the war, the role of African Americans, again, they were not allowed to fight, even though abolitionists pressured Lincoln to change his mind and allow African Americans to fight. If I can quote here from the great Frederick Douglass, he says, "Once let the black man get upon his person the brass letters U.S. and a musket on his shoulders and the bullets in his pockets, and there is no power on earth that can deny that he has earned his right of citizenship." So with the pressuring of Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, William Lloyd Garrison, all the great abolitionists, Abraham Lincoln, in the middle of the war, decided, I'm going to have to make a move. The North had lost the first and second battle Bull Run. The North had lost Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. And there was a real possibility that the North would lose this war. So Lincoln had to make a strategic decision. His first strategic decision was the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed in the rebellious areas 4 million African Americans. This put a dent in the economy of the South. And also, the most important decision that he probably made was allowing African Americans to participate in the Civil War. The statistics of African Americans in the Civil War: 185,000 fought in the war, 38,000 died. Even though African Americans only represented 2% of the population in the North, 10% of the military was African American. And the African Americans, of course, faced many problems. The problems that the African American soldiers faced in the war: the lack of equal pay, poor equipment, bad medical care, excessive military detail, the no-quarter policy, in which African American soldiers were not viewed as soldiers of war. And if they were captured, they were either shot sometimes even buried alive, or even sent back into slavery. So the mortality rate among African Americans were 40% higher than their white counterparts. In spite of the difficulties, African Americans rallied to the Union cause. At Milliken Bend in Louisiana, at Battle of Osceola in Florida, in Vicksburg in Mississippi, African Americans fought in the siege of Savannah, Georgia. African Americans fought in Arkansas, Kentucky, Tennessee, North Carolina. In fact, over 250 battles of the Civil War, African Americans participated. The Medal of Honor recipients, African Americans represent over 23 Medal of Honor recipients in the Civil War. Bruce Anderson, William Barnes, Robert Blake, and many others fought gallantly for the Civil War and the rights of the Union and the destruction of slavery. In fact, if I could quote this from Abraham Lincoln, he said, "Abandon all the posts now possessed by black men, surrender all these advantages to the enemy, and we would be compelled to abandon the war effort in 3 weeks." Quote from Abraham Lincoln. So in conclusion, we would like to honor the great men who fought in the Civil War, and hats off to the African American troops that fought in the Civil War. 38,000 of them gave their last full measure of devotion. They overcame the problems. They fought for the birth of freedom, a new birth of freedom in this country, and the successful conclusion of the Second American Revolution, and the continuation of our government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Thank you.
We seem to have missed a couple elected officials that weren't here to give a list, so I want to acknowledge them at this time. First, we have a young lady that is a governmental liaison here in Thornton Township, and also serves as a trustee in the village of Dalton, and she's helping us over there. Sabrina, would you say hello, Sabrina? And also a young man who's the right-hand man to Senator Dottie Trotter, who has contributed more to our township and our community college than all of our legislators combined. LG Sims. LG. State Representative Thaddeus Jones. Is Thaddeus here? Larry Lawrence from School District 148. Larry here? And then...
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to be involved in this ceremony today. I'm Jeff Walrath. I'm a postman, work right here behind, and I deliver mail in this town. I didn't serve in the armed forces, but I feel as a cousin to the armed forces, and a lot of folks ask me if I have. I'm just a collector. I brought in a lot of my Civil War stuff here.
Is there anyone disabled that would like to come over here, and then we'll have someone, you can sit down and we'll have someone.
I did razz everybody.
Present arms!